Hello, and welcome to Department of Public Transformation's Engage Rural webinar series. This series is for rural civic leaders, community activators, and artists who are interested in exploring how artistic strategies can strengthen civic health in your communities.
We also invite you to visit Department of Public Transformation, or DOPT's website, for more resources related to arts-based civic engagement and for ways to connect with our team further. I'm Vivian M. Cook, Engage Rural Program Coordinator with DOPT.
And I'm Ash Hansen, Creative Executive Officer with DOPT. This is the series' first webinar, Introduction to Arts and Civic Engagement, Examples from Rural Communities. First, a bit about DOPT. We are a rural-based, artist-led nonprofit. We develop creative strategies that strengthen connection, civic engagement, and equitable participation in rural places. And we believe rural communities already have the solutions, skills, and ideas they need to address challenges and rise to opportunities. We are rooted in Southwest Minnesota at the Yes House, but our place-based programs reach across Minnesota, the Upper Midwest, and the Mountain West. We support creative gathering spaces, artist-led activations, and place-based residencies. We work nationally to tell the stories of and advocate for rural creativity, and our Engage Rural offerings are available to rural communities across the United States. Check out our website for more information about our other programs.
Within this webinar, we're excited to offer a brief introduction to arts-based civic engagement and to feature 5 examples of arts-based civic engagement projects in rural communities across the country. We want to first emphasize that arts-based civic engagement efforts are happening in both urban and rural spaces. However, these initiatives are more common and often more resourced in urban areas. Our goal with Engage Rural is to specifically support civic leaders and artists in rural communities as they work to incorporate arts-based strategies into their civic engagement efforts, recognizing that these strategies need to be adapted to the rural context.
Now, what makes a civic arts practice different from a non-civic arts practice? Well, what most people likely think of when they think of an arts practice is this trajectory. An artist takes a subject, creates an artwork, and shares it with an audience. This kind of artwork is often studio-based, where the artist is conducting most of their work in a designated arts development space, such as their home studio or in a rehearsal room, and then often sharing that work in a designated arts showcase space, such as a gallery or a theater. Now, what if the artist is exploring a subject related to local civic life? That process might look similar, but with a civic focus. Say an artist takes a civic subject, creates an artwork, and shares it with an audience. Studio-based civic artwork can be incredibly valuable to civic health, particularly in raising awareness of civic issues.
But artists and their skills can be integrated even more fully and effectively into civic efforts if they connect with fellow community stakeholders during both the development and showcase of their artwork. These connections can move community awareness of civic issues into dialogue and action. So what if an artist not only explores a subject related to civic life in their artwork, but actually engages in dialogue with community partners as they develop and/or share that artwork? That process might look like this. Artists and community leaders discuss a civic subject. They create artwork in response to or as a part of those conversations, and then facilitate dialogue with the audience as they share the art. This kind of civic artwork is community-based, where the artist is in conversation with community members and leaders during the artistic development process, and where the art showcase also intentionally integrates opportunities for community dialogue.
Now, what if these connections go one step further? What if the artists and their community not only discuss a civic issue, but first identify a need for civic action and then together develop creative strategies to facilitate engagement? So that process might look like this. Artists and/or civic leaders initiate a dialogue. They discuss civic issues. They identify changes that might need to be improved around those civic issues. And then finally, they collaboratively design and implement creative strategies for civic action. This kind of civic artwork is systems-based, where the artists and their work are integrated into civic systems. The artist engages in ongoing conversation with civic leaders and plays a role in driving change within those systems through arts-based strategies. In these situations, the development and showcase of artistic work intentionally integrates opportunities not only for community dialogue, but also for community action. This framework for understanding civic arts was developed with inspiration from the Center for Performance and Civic Practices Civic Arts Spectrum. Our DOPT team uses this framework to identify both where and why civic arts initiatives may take place in communities across the country.
We also recognize that civic arts initiatives may belong in more than one category. Civic arts projects can be developed within a studio, within community conversations and spaces, and/or within civic systems. And these projects can help raise civic awareness, facilitate civic dialogue, and/or catalyze civic action. We'll soon dive into a few examples of rural arts initiatives that have cultivated civic engagement, but first, here are some definitions. How we at DOPT define civic is anything relating to community decision-making, problem-solving, and support systems. Civic engagement refers not only to actions like voting or running for office, but also volunteering, neighboring, attending public meetings, participating in community events, and contributing to community initiatives. Civic health refers to the strength and vitality of a community's ability to engage in and contribute to collective decision-making, participation, and collaboration. It is measured by both opportunities for civic engagement in a community and whether residents feel able and welcome to participate in those opportunities. Civic health is bolstered by not only traditional forms of participation, but also the inclusion of diverse voices, the fostering of social connections in residents' relationship with the place they live, and the use of creative strategies to address local challenges. Strengthening civic health ensures that rural residents can collectively work towards sustainable solutions, deepen their sense of belonging, and build resilience in the face of change.
A civic arts practice, then, is one that uses art and creativity to bring people together, spark conversations about local issues, and encourage more people to take part in community and civic life. A civic arts project is created collaboratively in conversation with community leaders and residents to address specific social, cultural, or environmental challenges and opportunities in their community. It can look a lot of different ways, especially because such projects should be unique to the community they are developed in and with. Our Engage Rural program specifically focuses on the application of arts-based engagement strategies in rural communities. At DOPT, we primarily work with rural communities with a population of 20,000 people or less. However, we generally encourage self-definition of the term rural whenever possible and are happy to chat and work with folks in places that relate more to rural culture regardless of population number.
A lot of people are involved in making civic arts efforts successful. What distinguishes civic arts from non-civic arts practices and some traditional civic engagement strategies, like town hall meetings, is that they bring artists, civic leaders, and community members all into conversation, and they depend on collaboration. Here are the key players in developing an arts-based initiative to address a civic issue. Artists who are invested in the civic issue are, of course, critical to this work. DOPT has an intentionally expansive definition of who is an artist. By artist, we mean anyone who is creative, resourceful, inspired, and driven to collaborate across all sectors of public, private, and civic life. This includes mediums such as visual, performance, multimedia, literary, social and civic, culinary, land, traditional, folk, textile, events, and more. We mean culture bearers, craftspeople, artisans, hobbyists, contractors, and handy people. Civic leaders include anyone who has taken on a leadership role in civic life, elected staff or volunteer, informal or formal, anyone who has the ability to influence change at a community-wide level. Civic leaders are regularly engaging with the systems that impact and are impacted by the civic issue at the heart of the arts-based initiative. This could include community organizers, local government officials, tribal council, nonprofit leaders, youth advocacy groups, influential neighbors, aunties and grandmas, elders, and more. Activators include anyone who is an instigator, organizer, connector, and cheerleader of the specific community or civic effort. They are informed about the civic issue and invested in solutions. Many members of the broader community will also likely be impacted by the issue at the heart of a civic arts initiative, and so they should be invited to participate in and co-create the initiative as well. A note that many folks may identify as more than one of these roles, which is wonderful. Our recommendation is that arts-based civic initiatives include representation from each of these areas.
Our team at DOPT strongly believes in the importance of civic engagement and health in rural communities, and we believe in the role that artists can play in civic life. We've seen evidence in the work we do that arts-based approaches to civic engagement increase representation, transparency, and trust in local government. And these strategies foster deeper connections, strengthen leadership, and break down barriers to participation. We recommend checking out the Municipal Artist Partnerships Guide, as well as additional resources provided in Engage Rural Discover Resource Hub to explore more of the research and examples behind this work.
Now, before you move forward in the webinar, we invite you to reflect on the information shared so far and how it connects to you and your community. Can you identify existing civic engagement efforts in your community? What's working well? Where are there gaps? Can you identify artistic and creative resources in your community? Who are the people who reflect DOPT's expanded definition of artists? Where are the places that host creative and artistic events, or could? What projects might be happening that are creative and resourceful? Perhaps they are already incorporating art, or perhaps they could benefit from doing so. Feel free to pause the video for a few moments if you would like to jot down some notes in response to these questions.
Now, what does arts-based civic engagement look like in rural places? It can look a lot of different ways. So to give a sense of the wide array of possibilities out there, we're going to share 5 examples with you, all of which we have gotten permission to share, featuring work from civic leaders and artist collaborations across the country. To start, I'd like to introduce you to Place-Based Productions, a theater company I founded in 2012. We create original site-specific performances rooted in rural places and the stories that shape rural community life. Co-directed by myself and Alex Bejeto Hathaway, Place-Based uses theater as a civic arts practice. We combine story circles, oral histories, creative workshops, and participatory performance to strengthen social connection and catalyze community-led action. Across more than a decade of work, Place-Based has collaborated with rural towns, confronting the intertwining impacts of extractive industries, drought, over-tourism, and political polarization. Our projects invite residents not only to tell their own stories, but to collectively imagine new futures for their landscapes. I'd like to share 2 recent projects which demonstrate how civic arts can mobilize community voice around issues of environmental justice. The first project is the Water Parade. By producing 2 original community-based shows in 2022 and 2024, Place-Based developed strong, trust-based relationships in California's Cuyama Valley, where water access is one of the region's most urgent challenges. With that trust established, Place-Based collaborated with residents to create a bilingual water justice puppet promenade in 2025. We hosted Zoom and in-person story circles and then led intergenerational workshops where residents built puppets, crafted songs, and shaped the event's themes using Teatro Campesino and Puerto Rican parranda traditions. The parranda wound through town with participants knocking on doors and inviting neighbors to join a collective call to celebrate Cuyama Valley's water stewards. The parranda was followed by a community celebration, as well as organizing sessions to mobilize residents around water, access, and environmental stewardship. The second project, Leaving a Trace in Moab, Utah. Place-Based staged an immersive musical performance in the Red Rock Desert, exploring human impact on the fragile ecosystems of the Colorado Plateau. Leaving a Trace was written through interviews, story circles, and research. The 2025 performance invited audiences to move through interactive scenes guided by park ranger clowns and concluded with deep-time poetic messages from 9 rock witches who embodied the geologic histories of the land. Scenes featuring local flora, water spirits, ranching characters, miners, and environmental writers illuminated themes of drought, over-tourism, extraction, political polarization, and cultural preservation. Performed outdoors in the Sandflats Recreation Area, the production blended humor, ritual, and civic dialogue, encouraging both residents and visitors alike to reflect on the literal and metaphorical traces they leave behind. Both the Water Parade, or Agua Paranda, in the Cuyama Valley and Leaving a Trace in Moab show how theater as a civic arts practice can bring communities together to engage in civic dialogue and action around issues such as water and land stewardship.
In 2014, artist Jenny Hahn collaborated with Stephanie Gilbert, farm viability and farmland protection specialist at the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. Their project engaged communities in Lisbon, Turner, and Winslow, Maine, and focused on the need to create and maintain access to farming resources for the next generation of farmers. The project was supported by the first round of the Center for Performance and Civic Practices Catalyst Initiative. From January through November, Jenny and Stephanie co-designed and co-facilitated 3 diverse land management conversations. Various performance and storytelling tools were integrated into each facilitated dialogue, inviting participants to play, ask questions, and imagine opportunities for positive change. These artistic tools helped community members with various perspectives, including landowners and longtime farmers, policymakers, and new immigrant farmers, communicate more effectively about technical farmland preservation policy and how to both navigate existing land protection processes and also imagine new ones. Jenny and Stephanie's partnership demonstrated how artistic strategies can contribute to decision-making and coalition building in non-art settings. This is an excellent example of a rural civic arts project that is working within systems, in this case, agricultural policy and land stewardship, to both facilitate dialogue and catalyze action.
In 2015, the Center for Rural Affairs collaborated with artists and community leaders in Decatur, Lyons, and Oakland, Nebraska to develop the Byway of Art. The team hosted outdoor living room conversations in each community where residents got comfortable in couches and chairs assembled along their town's main street. The team asked residents, "What makes your town special?" Using these conversations as a guide, Center for Rural Affairs staff and community members then translated each town's unique character and stories into 3 site-specific designs, which were built with support from ArtPlace America and community collaborators. In Decatur, residents referenced a trolley car that once operated in the town of 500 people. The legend, as it turned out to be, was traced back to several early postcards. The postcards showing a trolley superimposed on Main Street were used to market the town to outsiders. Rural Legends, the town's new storytelling venue in an old trolley car, was born from this quirky legend. The result was an artwork that turned fiction into reality. The storefront theater in Lyons emerged from the town's concern over vacant storefronts and fond memories of the old movie theater. In the Center for Rural Affairs hometown, organizers engaged with the community and artist Matthew Mazzotta to create an outdoor theater that literally folds out onto Main Street, turning an abandoned building into a functional artistic space for the community to enjoy. At the theater's first event, more than 200 people attended the premiere of a local filmmaker's documentary about Lyons Main Street. And in Oakland, Like a Till, a usable art piece, was inspired by the town's Swedish culture, and Oakland residents agreed that it captured their Swedish heritage. A mobile stage with a backdrop of Swedish row homes, it was dedicated before a performance of Ole's Last Bow, a musical based on a true story of Ole Iverson, one of the last Swedish vaudeville performers. The Byway of Art is a wonderful example of how rural civic arts can happen in community as a tool for facilitating dialogue about civic history, civic pride, and local civic life.
In 2021, the Mariposa County Creative Placemaking Strategy was published. This document was developed over nearly 18 months of art-driven community engagement and planning in rural Mariposa County, California. The strategy recommends projects, programs, and policies that use art and design to make Mariposa's economy stronger and to enhance and celebrate the county's cultural identity and sense of place. The plan's recommendations are the community's ideas and stem from the vision and direction provided by the community throughout the process. The leads for this project were the Mariposa County Arts Council and Mariposa County Planning Department, who collaborated with the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation, American Indian Council of Mariposa, Mariposa Creative Placemaking Strategy Advisory Council, and many other artists and community members to develop the county's creative placemaking strategy. These photos showcase the installation of an interpretive sign and art piece that featured baskets made by members of the Southern Sierra Miwok Nation and included a QR code that led to a survey for the creative placemaking strategy. This is just one example of how not only the plan itself, but the development of the plan integrated arts and civic engagement. Dialogue took place among Mariposans from a variety of backgrounds and perspectives amidst two devastating wildfires and throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and so required creative, adaptable community engagement techniques, both to navigate hurdles like hazardous air quality from the nearby wildfires and to solicit meaningful input from a variety of folks spread out in a geographically dispersed county. More than 4 years later, the Creative Placemaking Strategy Advisory Committee continues to steer the community towards the strategy's goals, demonstrating how cross-sector partnerships and arts-based engagement can lead to changes in civic systems.
Our final example is the Rural Civic Arts Learning Lab, a pilot program of Engage Rural, designed by DOPT in partnership with Southwest Minnesota Arts Council in 2022. The Rural Civic Arts Learning Lab led 3 communities in Southwest Minnesota through a 6-month process integrating creative strategies into community work. The cohort participated in personalized design sessions, virtual workshops, and peer learning, and additional resources for artist-led approaches that were tailored for each community. The participating community's commitment to creative civic engagement led to tangible results and encouraged them to pursue more engagement strategies like this in the future. The Learning Lab team from Milan, Minnesota, expressed a desire to engage new residents in civic life and to foster more inclusive community engagement. Their core team included representatives from the Milan Village Art School, the Greater Milan Initiative, and the local government, the mayor. Their participation in the Learning Lab inspired 2 local organizations and the city of Milan to build a partnership with the goal of hosting longer-term civic artist residencies in the future. And the mayor of Milan shared that as a direct result of participating in the Learning Lab, the city made tangible progress in fostering more inclusive civic leadership and engagement. After completing the Learning Lab, and for the first time in Milan's history, a woman of color was appointed to the city council. This was also the first time more than one council seat was held by a woman. New London, Minnesota's core team included an Economic Development Agency committee member, a city council member, the directors of 2 local arts organizations, and the owner of a local bookshop. The team expressed a commitment to inclusivity, community engagement, and through the Learning Lab, designed, secured funding for, and implemented a 3-month community artist in residence program. An advisory group supported the residency, and the artists in residence worked with the community to create a puppet parade, exploring themes brought forth by local residents. The pilot program grew into an annual residency, which has helped establish new cross-sector relationships and solidified ongoing dialogue with the city regarding creative community projects. In New London, every $1 of the initial investment by the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council leveraged $5.28 from other funding sources for creative community engaged projects. And community members across the sector recognize the value of arts and civic engagement. As Jeff Vetch, an Economic Development Agency committee member, said, "The arts can build community and bring people together." Tracy, Minnesota's team was eager to explore new civic engagement strategies with the focus on connecting with underrepresented communities. Their core team included city administrator, Economic Development Agency director, a local librarian, local business owner, Fine Arts Council member, and 2 local artists. Throughout the 6 months of the program, the Tracy team built a local advisory group and engaged a local artist to work with the city and the Tracy Public Library in conjunction with a number of community events. This short-term civic artist residency served as a pilot program and garnered support from the city for a future, longer-term artist in residence program. Tracy librarian Valerie Quist reflected, "We thought civic arts were something big towns did. It just seemed out of reach for us. The program has been huge. We now have a budget line for civic arts in Tracy." As a direct result of their participation in the Learning Lab, the Tracy Economic Development Agency and the city made an investment of $5,000 for the Learning Lab project and created an annual line item in the city budget to support civic arts. Every $1 of the initial investment by the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council and Tracy leveraged $3.36 from other funding sources for creative, community-engaged projects. The Rural Civic Arts Learning Lab showcased the power of arts-based strategies to raise civic awareness, facilitate civic dialogue, and catalyze civic action. Arts projects that emerged from the Learning Lab raised awareness about issues for community members, even if they didn't participate in the development of the project directly. For instance, through New London's Puppet Parade. All three teams leveraged artistic strategies to facilitate civic dialogue with their communities through local partnerships and collaborations. And we see civic action and systems changes in Milan's City Council appointments, New London's residency transforming into an annual event, supported by cross-sector partners in the local government, and Tracy's city budget allocations and plan for future City Artist in Residence program.
We want to extend a huge thank you to the artists and civic leaders who collaborated on these projects and for generously sharing their work with Department of Public Transformation and with everyone listening to these webinars. We now invite you to reflect on these 5 examples and how similar strategies might be applied in your own community. What civic issues need further engagement from community leaders and residents? What could artists bring to the table? What might be your next step in initiating such a collaboration?
As one example of a next step, we would recommend you visit our website at publictransformation.org to check out additional engaged rural resources at our resource hub. And please reach out to us if you are interested in working with us on a contract basis, or if you have questions about any of our programs or services. We want to thank you for joining us, and we hope to connect with you soon.